Me. Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and today I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
Other than missing the mute button initially, and just keep talking anyway, great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Part of me with the topic of terrain, I honestly debated as I'm looking off camera because there's like some of my mini stuff is that direction, and I seriously debated like, all right, how much stuff do I kind of pull out and show off as different terrain and stuff that I've made or that I use, and I decided, all right, I'm not gonna do it because there's just not enough space around me to kind of have it all, showcase it all, and then I'm dealing with this smaller camera and people will be like zooming in real close to try and look at these things. So I just figured I'd talk in another direction.
we went live, and then like me and you actually came on the screen, and we instantly, as soon as our faces showed, we instantly lost like 5 people.
Man, wow. Should I cover my face? Is this better?
It's like Dragon Fear. We presented the aura to them. We were kicking back and forth what we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about, and Dungeons and Lasers had sent us a bunch of terrain, and they obviously they sent us something for free, so they would like us to show it off and talk about it. And when they reached out, I also know Ted will whore himself for minis and terrain in an instant.
Well, to be fair, and before I go any further, I have backed Dungeons and Lasers Kickstarter several times over. They make really good quality stuff. Now there is plenty of terrain companies out there, whether you're looking at Dwarven Forge or the Warlock tiles from WizKids, or whether you're looking at Dungeons and Lasers. They're all really good quality. They're all really useful, and I have stuff from all of them, and I really enjoy all.
Wait, just to be clear real quick, we're not just going to be talking about terrain in the sense of putting it out on your table. Tonight, I think we're going to go over a little bit, theater of the mind versus using minis and maps and stuff, as well as we can talk about using terrain in your game as well. Absolutely. But the impetus for the conversation was like, oh, they just sent Ted a pile of terrain. I don't even know how much they sent him. And it's for the Abomination Vaults for Paizo.
Yes, they're officially licensed Pathfinder terrain. So this is the Abomination Vaults. So the way these things work, it's got 12 floor pieces, 30 walls, 6 doors, 6 doorways, and 21 customization bits. So enter the Mega Dungeon. Evil stirs in the depths of the Abomination Vaults, a sprawling dungeon where the evil sorcerer Belcora Haruvex attempted to raise an army of monsters. Hundreds of years ago, brave heroes must venture into a dungeon full of beasts and traps to prevent a spiteful villain from rising again, blah, 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 blah. But the way Dungeons and Lasers works, I don't know how well you can hear, but they come in blister sprues that you have to kind of snip out, sand down, and then give them the paint job that you're looking for. Yes, it is a beautiful picture, but it's not what's in the box.
Ted, you're supposed to have it already laid out and painted.
Yeah, that just is not going to happen when there's so many other things going on. I do have some of my previous stuff in a box over there that has been painted, but certainly not to, what's on their pictures, because I'm, amateur adequate at best when it comes to painting.
Yeah.
But the great part about this is like the amount of stuff that you get, the customization that comes in a Dungeons and Lasers box is a lot higher than what some of the other companies out there are. When you get a Dwarven Forge piece, yes, it's made of Dwarvenite and indestructible, but the price point for that little 4x4 or 2x2 piece is a lot higher than this stuff.
You also need a higher strength score in order to get it to the table or wherever you're gaming.
There is that. It looks beautiful. You can get that stuff already pre-painted and ready to go, and you could, with a little mega vault of your own finances, you can put out the same kind of mats that Matt Mercer from Critical Role does. But those things are incredibly costly, and not everybody can afford that kind of stuff. Warlock tiles, I feel, is like a step down from that. They're quality materials. They're durable. They too have the ability to, pack down flat. They come pre-painted. They're completely ready to go. But again, there is a higher price point than what Dungeons and Lasers do. So I really feel like they are the affordable company for the average gamer. And
so you are very much a maps and mini kind of guy,
100%.
right? Even like you not only do you like using terrain that you've bought or companies are nice enough to send you, but also you like modding, you like building your own, you like painting and crafting and doing all that stuff. I am definitely a little more theater of the mind and very like minimalistic about what I put on the table. At least I try to be. But like even when I GM in like our group, like I blame Ted 100% for this, but because that group is like used to running with Ted, like I'm like encounter time and they start pulling out the maps and minis on their own. I'm like, wait a minute, who's running this game anyway?
Well, I mean, to be fair, they've been running with me, some of them for plus years. So like it is kind of a used to. Now, like if you tell me, hey, stop that, and you'll whack me with a ruler or something, then I don't need to pull anything out. But I mean, to me, that's an element of the game that I enjoy. You can't really get the tactical aspect of the game to the same quality when you play Theater of the Mind. When you're looking at a spellcaster, well, realistically, how many targets can I get with this spell or with this ability? And when it's literally out there, you can see it. Everybody's positioned. Oh, how many of them within 30 feet of me? Great. Can I position myself here and get more of them and not hit any of my allies? Great.
Well, Ted, I'm more into the role play. I don't know what to tell you.
I like the role play too.
Slide Flourish has a great like quick guide for Theater of the Mind, and like he's got some really good advice, and like I think it was like a PDF or document you could download at one point that we've talked about, and it kind of covers like that kind of stuff, like how many targets can you hit with a spell. Like I usually like just automatically am like maybe a little bit more than half. You can hit even more if you want to hit some party members, and also it depends too over the years. Like we've definitely done where like more complex combats definitely pull out some minis and terrains, but ones that seem like they're going to be straightforward and simple, not worry about it quite as much. Maybe one big monster in an open area, which is not always particularly exciting, but it doesn't really require terrain.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm very much like that. I like having for instance, this past weekend I had the battle mats that have rooms and stuff on it, and you can flip them over, so it's two different things, double-sided, awesome. And I didn't really come with any actual scatter. I came with just the maps, just the minis I was planning to use, and that was it. And it's
did it hurt your soul a little bit, Ted, to not have the scatter?
It does not hurt my soul, but it was a matter of I could have technically done it. But since that's a game that we travel to, I only want to carry so much stuff. And since I was already carrying a large miniature that in and of itself, literally putting it out on the table, it was a showstopper. The game stopped and everybody's taking out cameras to take pictures and position and get the perfect Instagram shot. I mean, the players put that shot as their Facebook profile picture over the weekend. So like it was definitely like, all right.
Was that Carlos? Did Carlos do that?
No, that was Pratima actually.
Oh really? Wow. That's our newbie in that game. That's cool.
So like that's a moment of like, all right, I didn't feel like it was absolutely necessary to have the other things. I didn't have the shelf and the supplies that could have been there. I didn't have all the loot pieces of treasure that were a possibility, because I didn't want to have to cart them over to the city in a backpack, walk the, however far it is, walk the 4 flights of stairs carrying it, and then do it all backwards. That's just not as much fun. Now, if it's at the table where I can just put all the stuff in a box at my feet or off to the side and be able to like, bam, put it out there when it's time, Yeah,
Ted
that's
needs a real life henchman to bring into the dungeon, also known as our gaming group, in order to like carry all of his stuff. Where's your Nodwick, man? Have you considered
I
hiring a Nodwick?
I am too poor to afford a Nodwick, unfortunately.
Yeah. You got like you're gonna have to be like, son, you're coming to game night. I get to play? No, you get to carry my stuff.
Well, unfortunately, my 14-year-old is not gonna get into that. If he's coming to the table, he wants to play. That's
Yeah.
just, and I don't.
Tell him he's got to earn it. Like, be like, listen, before they would let me play at the table, I had to carry this stuff for like 5 years, and then they finally let me play.
Yeah,
You don't think it's gonna work?
no. I was like, I already got a group. I'll play with them.
Sigh.
And as much as I love my son, I would not want to infect all of you with his energy, because I don't think it would jive well with the energy of this particular group.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 14-year-old boy energy. Not
Yes.
great. Not great. I understand. I was there at one point. It wasn't
Yeah.
great then either.
Well, as much as I have more energy when I'm GMing and when I stand up and get behind the screen and do all the
Yeah.
things, he has to stand up because he can't contain himself in the chair. So
I think the Italians have something for that. It's called cement shoes. So you just gotta cement them down. So Brian Smith says I have back problems, meaning I backed too many Kickstarters, which made me think of you, Ted.
yeah, that is me to T. And
I used to have that problem. I don't have it anymore.
I have unfortunately had to put myself on a backing freeze. I
A
might have,
diet. You're on a diet.
I'm on a diet of backing Kickstarters, but it's mainly because we are building a second story on the house, and
So you're expanding the terrain you live in. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm expanding the terrain that I live in. Yes. Well done, Dave, in making that correlation. But
Try.
until I know what the monthly bills kind of look like, I can't just keep shelling out money on Kickstarters that will look pretty on my shelf here.
Yeah. Well, for me, the realization was when I was like, oh, I got a notification from Monica Games, and they're like, hey, you got to collect your rewards. So I'm like, all right, I'll go and collect my rewards. And I realized that I had backed so many Kickstarters from them and never collected any of the rewards. And 2 boxes of books show up in my house. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. I'm done. I'm tapping out on Kickstarters.
I mean, to be fair, and I'm not gonna single any companies out because I don't want them to feel like I'm giving them any kind of bad press. But there's books that I backed, and it took so long to get, and once it got here, I'm like, I'm not really interested in that. Or like, I looked at it, did a quick flip through, put it on the shelf, and have never touched it again.
There's just too much. Like you just get bogged down with so much stuff that it becomes hard to use all the extra stuff. And it's not even like that. It's not that stuff's bad. It's still like good content a lot of times. It's just that, how much are you going to use at once unless you have a particular idea for something. And like, I mean, when we were younger, you just sit there and flip through the books all day, and, you'd have everything spread out around you, and you had so much time to like prep and do things. And it's just like, not anymore. And also, to me, it's just so much easier when I can see things digitally and just grab kind of like what I need.
Well, there are a number of Kickstarters that, before I hit myself on the backing freeze, I did say, well, you know what, I'm just going to grab the PDF so I can have the content. And even if I never use it, I at least, I've got the PDF. It's not taking up space on the shelf. And, I'm paying less of a price point, but I'll have the content. I won't have any of the extra swag, and won't have the other things, but I can at least show some support and have the content.
So what do you think makes for good use of terrain in a game? Not at the table, but in a game.
So the great thing about just terrain itself is an aspect of it can really, sell if you give it the description. And there have been times where I've either, was listening to a game, or, I was the GM for a game, and a solid enough description, you've got somebody closing their eyes and they're like, yeah, I feel like I'm there. If you engage multiple senses, you don't even have to hit all of them, but just engaging two, a sight and smell, or like you say, like, oh, you run your fingers across the tree and the texture is different, and you describe something that they're not, that character might not be used to, feeling, and it's like, oh wow, that's evocative. The one game that I listened to, the GM always starts every session off with the first thing that you smell is, and then it goes on from there. And he starts off with like the screen black, and it goes into it, so that there's an aspect of engaging the terrain before you get into what the characters are doing. So, the terrain is just as important as everything else that's going on, because it is literally the foundation of where they are. So like, you got to take it into an account, and that's before you get into the tactics of a battle and whatever else is going on.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with trying to have diverse types of terrain in the Under the Dome game that I'm running for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like the very first session, you guys are doing races on your Devil's Rides. You're basically like Arcana Tech fantasy motorcycles through city streets, and then from them you guys went out into the waste and into this grasslands that is contains this grass that's made of metal, and it's like kind of like blades, so like that becomes something you guys had to deal with. And one of the first combats outside the cities with the Thrycreen that are all over the what is that, what was it, a Demon Crusher?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Demon Grinder.
With like leading up to an even bigger encounter where basically the dungeon was going to be a kind of petrified purple worm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you guys kind of ran some some espionage or mystery type scenarios through fighting schools that are attached to an arena within the city. And we've also had quite a bit of like fighting in the streets so far in the city as well. And also you guys have done one gladiatorial combat in an arena, and and I definitely took some inspiration from the Gladiator movie with that. Although I didn't get to use it all, but like there's platforms that would raise up and monsters could come out, and different effects would happen every round randomly to either the players or the adversaries you guys were fighting. So I've been trying to really trying to make sure the terrain that you guys have encounters in is kind of interesting and different.
And I have to say that you've done a fantastic job with that. With my current game that we ran this past weekend, this was a different scenario that we had, because everything else is previously, it's just been on the boat. I mean, the game is called We Live on a Boat for a reason, right? But this time you guys were in the city of Flotilla, which is this for on the water is a massive city that's made up of gangplanks and old sailing vessels that clearly magic is involved to keep everything afloat and what's going on. But it was done in a way I'm like, all right, well, you guys have to go in and steal something from a pirate that lives here. And of course the pirate was not a old typical just humanoid, but by story it was a spectator that had modified its body in some way, shape, or form. But I had an Eye of the Deep mini. That's what you called it, right?
Eye of the Deep, yeah.
And I think it was a Reaper mini that a friend of mine painted. It was freaking fantastic. And I said, when I pulled that sucker out, GameStop. Everybody had to pull out their phones and take pictures.
It did look really cool. I am disappointed it was described with a tiny pirate hat, but it did not indeed have the tiny pirate hat.
If I had had more time, I would have found a pirate mini and literally just segmented the hat off, applied it with some little sticky tack. But my weekend was already overbooked, and I went into it, barely knowing what I was going to do Friday, and I had an hour to assemble whatever I was going to get a shower and get out of the house, because the aforementioned, hey, I'm building an addition on my house. I had a yard sale Saturday, so I got up at 6 a.m. and immediately began, shoving a whole bunch of stuff out on my front lawn, and sat there until 2 o'clock, where I then had to begin breaking it down, and then have to, by the time that was done, which took a long time, it was get something to eat, because I hadn't really eaten anything all day. And then, like I said, shower, get my stuff, and get to our meeting point to be able to go over to the city.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like had you just had 1 or 2 more days, you could have totally made it happen. Literally, when I search Amazon for tiny pirate hat, and like $4 is one of the things that come up.
Well, I mean, there's definitely directions that I could have gone, and I knew what I could have used. It was just a matter of literal time, and I got the sticky tack. It would literally be, all right, do I have any kind of pirate mini that I care about that I could just cut the hat off of and stick it on the
steal one of your kids' old toys. Cut off the head. Sorry, kid. I need this.
But like I said, I did not have that option, and you guys now have the hat because you stole it, along with everything else in the room.
I was definitely taking the hat. That guy. So it's funny because it was a very interesting combat, and like in the room where the combat happened, like there was just like stuff. It was like a warehouse, and like we were raiding their warehouse on stuff, and one of the things was a table full of alchemy stuff and potions on it. And like we're all running low on resources, and the monk's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna start chucking these potions at it. And I'm like, oh my god, what a waste of an action. Why don't you just punch it or something? Is what I'm thinking, right? And then it turns out that he throws and hits it with a potion that Ted randomly rolls from the potions to determine which potion to hit it.
Now, to be fair, I had already typed out the loot for what was in there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I went to a random potion table and rolled. I literally had 8 different potions that you guys were going to have as rewards. And I just like, okay, roll a D8 to find out which one it was. And he rolled, which happened to be the last potion on the list. And I'm like, okay, let me just reread this just to make sure. And I'm like, this is hilarious. Now, everyone is usually familiar with the potion of gaseous form, but it was a potion of aqueous form, which means instead of the thing turning to vapor, it turns to water. Now, it's supposed to be when you drink this potion, but it was so hilarious. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to let this happen. There's no saving throw. He made an attack roll. He rolled randomly to find out what potion this is. It could have very much granted him some extra powers. It could have done a number of other cool things, but no, he grabs the one that turns it into a puddle for 10 minutes. Oh my God, this is hilarious. Perfect ending, done and done. I'm going to let this thing happen. And, like, all right, as you do this, the glass breaks upon its, shelly exterior. And as the water as the potion kind of coalesces around it, the thing just collapses into just this, wave of water that walked all over the floor. I was like, holy crap.
I mean, it had a big mouth. He could have easily thrown it in the mouth anyway, so I don't think it really matters.
The mouth was massive on that thing, but I thought that was a humor.
Yeah, so the Eye of the Deep, and I don't know if we've got... there's a picture on Twitter that I put up I put up the picture where Chirp was in its claw. So the Eye of the Deep is like an old monster from AD&D, I believe, and it kind of looks like a beholder, but they're they're aquatic beholders, and they don't have like the 10 eyes. I think they have like 4 eye stalks and the one big eye, but then they have like lobster pinchers and like some dangly, like almost like the jellyfish parts,
Right.
tentacles and stuff. So yeah, so that's a really cool. It's a really cool monster, and I don't think it was like super powerful in AD&D, but you made this one a pirate and beefed it up, and after us having fighting like a mutated ogre and a bunch of other pirates, so it was a good fight, and it was pretty close. My barbarian, was close to going down a couple times.
Well, I mean that is the point. As I've said many times, it's my job as a DM to make the characters feel like they're challenged, and I gotta put you guys through your paces. And with Chirp, our little frog bard cleric, essentially becoming part cleric, like he's a life domain cleric, which means when he heals for a lot more, than what he was previously doing. I gave you guys a fight with 3 little pirates and the ogre, and I used an ogre stat block with some modifications. He had more attacks, but each attack did less damage. So he was a little bit fun because he had 4 arms. He wore armor and had a shield, so he just punched 3 times for more damage, and it was fun. Guys got to put some hurt on you, and then I modified a spectator to have more hit points, a higher physical attack, and it was a legendary creature, so it had some legendary actions. It had some modifications to its like spell reflection that it has, but it was, for the most part, a lot of fun. And the further into the battle it got, like the more powerful some of the things it was doing. So like at first it only fired 1 eye ray, then it fired 2 eye rays, then it fired 2 eye rays and was able to make like a physical attack. So it was definitely making modifications through the fight as it was going on, and having more fun. And nobody got to be charmed, or we had one character kind of get paralyzed at the end, but it was definitely a lot of fun. And from a DM standpoint, you guys seemed like it wasn't a, oh my god, you guys got through with the skin of your teeth. Other than the one character who realized, you were all still standing when it was over, and you were technically down a player because your wife wasn't there this session. So imagine had you had a 5th person at the party.
Well, I'm sure you would have beefed up the encounters as well.
Oh,
but I also didn't do myself any favors because I'm playing a Path of the Depths barbarian, and that was like, it was from the League of Legends crossover. And since when Ted's like, we're going to do an aquatic campaign, I'm like, there's a barbarian for that, and I really like this idea. So like as a bonus action, I have a pull that I can use every round, and I'm like, there's no way I'm not using this ability because I have it. So I just kept pulling enemies closer to me. And so I feel like, what, I pulled the aggro for the rest of the group. I did my job.
Well, the other aspect is you also, to use the nerdy colloquialism, Leroy Jenkins did. It's like, I'm just running through.
Yeah. Well, actually, so that was a tactical decision on the last room. Because one, I didn't want to give them more time to prepare, and two, I didn't want my rage to end. And also we had a bless spell going on, so
no. By that point in time, the bless was over, wasn't it?
No, because the bless got ended in that encounter.
Ah, okay.
So I was like, we got a couple things going on. I don't want to keep these going. So I did Leroy Jenkins it, but it was also a tactical Leroy Jenkins, if there's such a thing. So, but I am also a Leroy Jenkins kind of player anyway.
And I love that aspect about you. It's one of
Not
those.
Everybody does at the table.
Well, I mean, as the DM, I love you.
Yeah. I mean, when the other players gather and they want to plan for, like, an hour in real time, I'm like, all right, yeah, we need to cut this short and get back and just get into it. Listen, most of our groups only meet once a month, and we don't play quite as long as we used to. We ain't got time. Nobody got time for that. We got to get in there. We got to get the fun going and have some action. And if that requires Leroy Jenkins, so be it.
Sure. And because of that, we got to have an early end for the session. I felt, being able to wrap up before 11 was kind of nice. I don't know how everybody else felt, but like I said, I had a long day, so I was like, all right, you guys got to this point. This is a good stopping point. We can kind of just narrate your
Yeah. I mean, we only play for 3 or 4 hours anyway. And that
I feel like with that group, like we've been really pushing the, I'm not getting home till midnight tomorrow. So it's usually about an hour longer than what we did, but I don't know.
Yeah, but like that group, we also is very social, so we like hang a lot. We like even a lot of times we hang out much longer.
That's true.
So like, and that's like this past Saturday we didn't hang out as much as we would normally have. Honestly, you were tired from the yard sailing all day and getting ready for the game, and I just had kind of a busy day where it was like nonstop up until game. So I was ready. I was ready to get home as well, and also have a little bit further to go. So
sure,
but it was fun.
So Brian's got some some talking points here. So difficult terrain, favored terrain, terrain specific abilities. I don't know how you feel about crossing into any of those. I think favored terrain is one of those things like, all right, a ranger gets it. They have some advantages if they happen to be, in that particular element. I don't really feel like there's a whole lot to kind of unpack there. But difficult.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the favored terrain, like it just turns those kind of things in the game more hand wavy than make them more interesting.
Right. But I think difficult terrain is an interesting element because when you make things difficult terrain, being a person who has done a much more than the average person's hiking and traipsing through the woods and whatnot, like I definitely understand what difficult terrain feels like, whether it be from a standpoint of in my youth or even to dealing with stuff, just this freaking past, yesterday. I go out into the woods and I have a hobby of using multi-million-dollar satellites to find lost Tupperware, but geocaching is a lot of fun.
That's an interesting way to describe it.
Well, I have a shirt that literally says that. My hobby is multi-million-dollar, satellites to find lost Tupperware. It's amusing, but it is what it is. But when you sometimes are like, okay, well, I've got to go off the trail, you then definitely have to traipse through the woods and it's not just a constant walk. There's sometimes like, all right, which way is the best way to navigate through this? So sometimes difficult terrain is just going up and down and around and what have you. Other times, like, all right, you have to stop and look at where's the best way to get through what's here. Because if you're not on a trail, like you're not just gonna be like, all right, I'm going in this line and I'm not gonna just stop. Like that's not what difficult terrain is gonna do.
I'm the juggernaut, bitch.
Well, I'm certainly not the juggernaut, but from a combat perspective, like you could be like, oh well, there's difficult terrain. How does your character, and give it a little bit of narrate, and we'll get through it? Are you the kind of person that moves a little bit slower? Are you the kind of person that's going to like, oh, well, I tried this. Nope, can't go that way. Let me go back. And you're trying to use the full movement, where other people are like, no, I'm going to approach this from an intellectual perspective and, still get there in the same amount of time, but have the least amount of hassle on yourself.
Well, in the Under the Dome game, like when we did the arena combat, the first random effect was shifting sands. So basically, all the sands of the arena began shifting and moving around, making everything difficult terrain. Which also was probably the most interesting time for it to happen, because you both parties are starting on the other side of the arena. So then you guys have to figure that out. And then also, like, when I've done the Sea of Bladed Grass, is like, the thing with that is you have to move at half speed, the equivalent to difficult terrain, or you get cut. Unless you have some kind of natural armor or thick hide. And that's why, like, that area is like overrun with Thri-kreen, because their chitin it doesn't bother them. And that's kind of what I did. If you have like a natural armor of 13 or higher, it's not a big deal. You can ignore it. But everybody else, it's like, well, if you don't want to be cut to ribbons by just running, then you're gonna have to slow down.
And I think, like, with the sands aspect, again, if you've walked on a hot sandy beach, like, that's just normal sand. Like, but you definitely feel it. It slows you down. It's not something that the average person is just be like, yeah, I can run this, no big deal. So I definitely understand how that could be an issue. And when magic is involved or technology is involved, it can be even that much worse. And having excuse me, having literally been cut by branches and twigs and thorns, that's no joke. I will gladly slow down and not run through a thicket of dangerous terrain.
Yeah, that's a bad time. There's definitely no fun there. Is lava difficult terrain? It depends on how you define difficult. I think, doesn't lava in the game just do like a ridiculous amount of damage? It's like taking a bath in a fireball.
I think it's like 10 by 10, but I wouldn't bet the house on it.
Yeah, I know it's really high.
I consider lava as like whatever, unless you are fire resistant or immune to fire. Like, it's pretty much whatever you put in lava, say goodbye. Like, it's just gone. It's not like, oh, can you survive? Like, oh, you stepped in lava, your foot's gone.
What was the movie? It was like, was it with Tommy Lee Jones? It was like an environmental disaster movie, and like the magma's coming up through the subway. And like the one dude grabs somebody and like walks into it and throws them as his legs are dissolving.
Oh, jeez.
I'm sure somebody in the chat will know what I'm talking about. Although, as far as like special like terrain specific abilities, that's also a cool idea. Where and I guess that's kind of what I did a little bit with the arena fight, is like, but you could do it with other things too. Is like the terrain itself has its own initiative and goes, and this could be favorable to your monsters, or it could just be completely neutral, and it doesn't even matter. So I was just going to say, like, what if this particular section of the jungle or swamp's a man-eating section of the jungle and swamp, and the fight kind of got carried there, and neither group are familiar with it, and the jungle doesn't really care. It's not intelligent, it's not sentient, but it is living, and it eats things, and your things. So, just randomly select, oh, look, it just ate one of your enemies, yay! Oh, it's now eating you this round, though. Ugh.
So, like, you could do it as, like, you roll initiative. Typically, the way 5e does things is anything that would be terrain, essentially, I would constitute as, like, a lair action.
Yeah.
That on initiative 20. Just because that's what it typically has. Even if it's not, like, officially a lair of a creature, to me, anything that would be the terrain or the environment, that's what I tend to do. But Park says, was the movie you're talking about Volcano?
Probably. That sounds about right. Brian Smith, I got an idea for a cursed item, a pair of boots where the soles are difficult terrain. Brian Smith, every time you open your mouth with these cool ideas, you know what I say? You need to draw that. I need to see that on your Instagram. That would be a great idea for for a cursed magic item. Maybe the bottom's like almost like sticky paper or fly paper or whatever, so it's like sticking to the ground.
So I would imagine that it'd be like it changes based on the environment, so that it interferes or reacts to.
Like if you're climbing, they become slippery
Yes.
instead of sticky. But
Yes.
if you're walking, they're sticky.
So like if you're walking through like heavy brush, then they're probably like getting fuzzy, so it's catching thing, kind of slowing you down. Like the sticky angle could work for a lot of things, and it's like, like you literally have to like rip your foot off the ground every so often. I think that would be utterly hilarious.
One of the games I played in a Maze Arcana game when that was a thing, way back when, at a convention, and one of the things was like the session started with a Halo drop. So like it started with everyone just like falling through the sky, and you kind of had to maneuver. And also, we ran into like encounters that way as well. So that was kind of interesting, and like it was like an Eberron game, and we're doing a Halo drop into the Mournlands.
Oh, geez.
And it was funny because one of the players was able to communicate with one of these like giant floating stingray creatures, and like ended up like, instead of having a combat encounter, convinced us to carry us to where we wanted to go. So kind of like circumnavigated most of the Halo drop aspect of it, and we made friends along the way.
There you go. Well, sometimes it's about the friends you make along the way.
Parks was saying, I think along the lines of always having a rock in your shoe, no matter what you do. Oh, that is awful.
That is horrendous.
I almost feel like you need a new condition for that called distracted, because it is really hard to focus on anything when you got a rock in your shoe.
I would completely agree with that. I've had to deal with that a number of times. I've had something that like I wore the shoes all day, and I go out for a walk, and somehow something shifts.
Yeah.
And now it's in my shoe, like gets underneath my toes or underneath the balls of my feet, and I'm like, where did this come from? I've been wearing these shoes for 8 hours already. How all of a sudden is there something underneath my foot? It was crazy.
So Byron Lee, difficult terrain would probably give a disadvantage on an adventuring party, or am I mistaken? It would just give your speed would be half movement, which can be very annoying, especially if you're already kind of a slow character. But even the normal characters, going from a 30 to a 15 is kind of rough.
Well, the problem is when you go from a 25, it actually takes you to 10, because you can't go, a half feet when there are squares of 5. So
it does make it tough.
It makes it really tough for those small characters, or for the slow characters, I should say, because not all things with not all things that are small are, a speed of 25, and not all things with a speed of 25 are small.
Brian Smith, aggravated condition. Oh no.
Oh God, we're gonna have the aggravated damage condition.
The aggravated damage condition. I don't know if Brian's like trolling us from some of our old videos, or or he just thinks like one of our friends used to. So it was definitely something that one of our DMs made up, aggravated damage, and it was from a barbed needle trap, and it took half of someone's pinky.
We eventually had the 9-fingered rogue because of damage.
I don't know if it was 9-fingered or 9.5. I think it was 9.5.
He was the 9-fingered rogue. It lost a pinky because of a barbed needle trap.
As you do. those days were a little more brutal, and our GMs were a lot more aggro.
Well, I want to say yourself included in that description.
I said our GMs. I was one of them. We had to break you youngins in right.
I think you just like to break us. No, I mean it was a great time, and we've got so many amazing stories because of it, and those things are all in the past. So it's
do you have any like terrain situations that kind of sticks out in your memory from all the years of gaming?
I think like that's one of the things that I don't have the massive grasp of, but I mean like I know that I've gamed in pretty much all of the environments.
Yeah.
Like I know, like we recently did Rime of the Frost Maiden over on Mini Terrain Domain, and our characters kind of showed up very much not prepared for the weather. So it was like, oh, do you have some ability to resist the cold? If not, you're making con checks all the time. And it was brutal until we actually were able to get some kind of cold weather gear. And then, my character went and did something stupid eventually. And, now I'm resistant or immune to cold damage all the time. So it's all good.
How was that something stupid? It worked out.
Yeah, I essentially took power from the Frost Maiden.
Oh.
So
Are you a warlock?
No, maybe.
No, definitely maybe.
we killed her, because we moved on. We're now doing Wild Beyond the Witchlight. But like my character was given abilities, so like I don't have my character pulled up, but I'm either resistant or immune to cold damage. My eyes changed color. I don't remember what they were, but they're now an icy blue. And once a day, I can actually cast Cone of Cold, which I don't think I've done yet. But we got to the literal rhyme, and like I touched it, and it was like, all right, there was this ability like, do you take power? And I was like, sure, why not? And that's what I walked away with. I thought there was going to be a chance where I was going to be dominated or whatnot, sometime later, and didn't happen. So it was all good. But it was a blast.
I got so Guy Slanders from How to Be a Great GM ran a Saber Dice game, and one of the battles took place on a crumbling tower. It didn't start off that way, but it ended that way. And we were fighting. We were fighting a dragon. Actually, we were fighting a white dragon on this tower. The tower sustained damage, and then in addition to that, one of the other players fled, went back to the airship because there's airships in that world, and then flew over top of the battle and dumped the cargo, which was just beans. But completely emptied all the beans, killing the dragon and one of our players, and destroying the tower. So then we had to, in addition to having this fight, we also had to get off the tower. Actually, I think we had a couple characters die in that fight. I think we had one character kind of get reincarnated instantly, and two just straight up died. And wow. One of the ones, before all that happened, one of the characters, the white dragon and the person that was riding it were trying to abscond with. They wanted that person for some reason, and I think they were like, yeah, I'll go with you to save the party. And I was like, absolutely not. So I was playing a druid, and I cast heat metal on the character, on the other player. So armor. So making the white dragon let go of him. But it was all for naught, because I think then soon after that, breath weapon, then Mountain of Beans and Crumbling Tower. So that was pretty cool. And then in the campaign that I ran at D&D in a Castle, which will be there again this year, I believe the third week in September. So there might be tables left if you want to come game with us in a castle. But anyway, like it was literally supposed to be a minor inconvenience for my players. And I had a spiraling descending tunnel, and I was like, look, it's kind of steep, but you'll be okay. What are you going to do to, kind of like make sure you don't, slip and fall? You guys want to use pythons and rope, or, how do you want to do this? Just going to go carefully. And one of the players was like, I want to take my shield and Legolas my way all the way down. And then all the players were like, I absolutely want to do that too. And then it became a skill challenge for them to navigate going down the spiral on their shields. And literally that episode did more damage to them than I think anything in the whole entire campaign did. But, just due to bad rolls and crashing at the bottom. So I didn't even plan that terrain to be pivotal or super interesting, but my players had other plans.
So I do have a few cool stories. So in Dawnbringers, we were in a tower. So I think this was during season 4, Heart of the Night Fang Spire. We were traipsing through, I think this vampire lord's castle, and my character winds up, triggering a trap. And he begins sliding down one of these, essentially slides. And of course, it's not just, you're going to slide and fall, but there winds up being, spikes that shoot out and stab me for, even more ridiculous damage. Barbarian fighter, paladin kind of nonsense. I was able to be fine, but it was definitely not shall we call it a pleasant experience. Doug ran a game where we were kind of jumping up cliff faces, and my goblin fighter should have had no problem crossing this little chasm.
Yeah.
But I'm certain you remember the story. But sure enough, he fell 120 or 150 feet wearing plate mail. There's absolutely nothing that I think should allow someone to survive that kind of fall.
Hey, goblins are bouncy. It's fine.
But I fell, I hit the ground and splat. And I get back up and I'm like, all right, let's just move on from here. And I just was like, this is so stupid. My character should be dead. Not that I wanted that character to die. It's ridiculous. And then there was, of course, when, years ago in my Narcitus game where you guys had to go fight a beholder. And the terrain was this multi-orbed, every room was circular. And then there were circular tunnels all over the place.
Yeah, it's more like tubes and chutes, right? Than anything.
So if you didn't have the ability to levitate or fly, it was a scenario of navigating through this, maze of, maze of rooms that were entirely circular and tubes that I felt very much fit the spherical angle.
It was a very vertical dungeon.
Yeah.
So you weren't there, but Doug was, and Robin and their brother. I believe it was the first Origins where it was the first time I got to meet Robin in person.
Okay.
And I believe Dan Dillon and Steven, I forget his last name, I feel so bad. They were running games for Kobold Press, and it was a Pathfinder game. And the adventure took place on, they have these titanic creatures that they're not frozen in time, but time moves so slow for them, literally 8 years, if not decades, have to go by before they even move. It's so long the goblins just built structures on top of them, right? These titanic creatures, right? And that was a lot of fun. And I thought we were definitely going to die, because it was definitely one of those things. If you fall, that's it. You're probably going to be. It's going to be game over.
Right.
kind of scenario. So that was super interesting and a fun use of terrain. And we definitely had to do a lot of checks and figure things out. And it was all like rickety goblin constructed rope bridges and rotted boards. And then the idea, like, so it's these two titanic creatures that were locked in battle. Like literally pieces of them have flown off because of being attacked and are just floating in the air. And they were like, okay, that looks like a great place for us to build a bridge too. And like, let's put a house here. And then on top of that, it was I think it was like a fetch quest, but we weren't the only ones trying to get it. So it was like, we're playing like this weird 3-dimensional game of football or rugby with the thing that we're trying to get, and that was a lot of fun and a super awesome use of terrain. And I thought about it because Parks, as a comment, I had a character have to do fights on the back of a giant kaiju style dragon in mid-flight. That was definitely difficult terrain. And that's that definitely made me think of that because like at that point too, like the creatures were just like structures and like they had like tunneled through them, and it was one of the more interesting uses I've seen of a quote unquote dungeon.
That's definitely an aspect that can be quite humorous and enjoyable to kind of look at when you're getting into all of it. So
well, and also too, like that's the kind of idea, like so to think about the different types of terrain you're using in your games, like how are the players going to interact with it, how can the monsters interact with it. I think maybe Brian also mentioned like when he mentioned special actions for the terrain, it also made me think about in your game where like because everything is aquatic and not only a lot of it is on the boat, but a couple of us are actually aquatic characters, so like it's not really hard for us to go into the water, and then like it's everything, you have another dimension that we're able to work in
Right.
when we do that. And like that came into play too when we launched our assault on that on the warehouse in Flotilla, because because we're able to go underneath of the warehouse and inspect it from there. And I believe that like that's the escape route we used, was out into the water as opposed to back into the city.
Yep. And that makes it harder to track because like unless you're completely an aquatic creature, like with a the ability to breathe water and essentially training in, well, can I breathe in the water to get the sense of did something pass through here, which would be like a really bizarre twist. But like mechanically, there's nothing that I know of that exists with that kind of advantage on tracking underwater because you've got this strange ability. But I mean, that's not to say that it couldn't exist or doesn't exist somewhere. But it's there. And to me, I had already put you guys through a little bit of paces with skill challenges and whatnot. So getting into or getting away from, I didn't feel was a necessary aspect. And we'll get
skill challenges, I was just going to say, is also another great place where you can kind of interact with and work with the terrain.
Mm-hmm. So we are getting down to our last couple minutes. Do we want to, pull out the ERD stuff again?
Oh yeah, we're doing a contest, and if you have a slight advantage now, if you're one of the people that are still here, that we're gonna be doing an extra giveaway with Easy Roller Dice. We had ran it already, and the person didn't claim their win, so we're rerunning the contest.
So we've got a oversized dice cup with the wolf motif. We have the adventure box, which is essentially a dice tray with a lid. It stores 3 sets of dice and 2 miniatures. Lid and base can be used as the dice tray, so it also has the nice cool wolf motif. The thing that I want to steal is the dice coffer that says shiny sparkly math rocks. And then it's got 2 sets of dice so that you could be able to put it in your dice tray. There's a gunmetal, green, as well as a orange, black, red, set here. But we're gonna run a contest, do what we normally do, and we're gonna give this away to some lucky Nerdarchy fan. And all I'll need to do is get that email address, get the address from you, and send it off.
Right. With that, maybe we should tell you how to enter the contest and how you can win such things. So it's real simple. Just sign up for our newsletter. We're going to randomly select a name from the newsletter, and then Ted will email you. We're going to announce it in 2 weeks. So the 6th, we're going to announce it here, the winner. So you have basically up until probably like an hour or so before we go live with the live chat, and then Ted will shoot someone an email, and they'll get a bunch of cool dice and dice accessories.
Indeed.
So again, there's a link in the description so that you can go check out the Easy Roller, not the Easy Roller Dice contest, but the newsletter to sign up for it. We also have some links down there for Dungeons and Lasers as well, so you can go take a look at those things that we were showing off earlier too. But in 2 weeks we will announce the winner, so just sign up for the newsletter. And also, that being said, there's other cool reasons to sign up for the newsletter. We create content over there every week. Sometimes it's stuff to put in your game. Sometimes it's just insights on a particular topic, like this topic we're talking about tonight. And we go a little bit more in depth in different directions. Who knows? Like, some of us might kind of like talk about it and insight. Some of us might create actual game mechanics for you to use in your game. Me, Ted, and Doug each have a section that we write for. And I've been told by other people that like we do have one of the best industry newsletters out there. So
there's a lot of good stuff, and it's a lot of fun to write every single week. And the fact that there's 3 of us that are contributing, it does mean that there's 3 different approaches to what's here, and it's expanded material. Sometimes like I talk about like, oh, well, I'm going to do, or I have already done, and then there's times that we build upon topics even further and do additional, blog posts or website posts about it. So there's plenty of great Nerdarchy material out there, should you so desire to go and check it out.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago we did crystals, and I believe Ted did a crystal golem and statted out a monster, and I actually did a crystal creature template that I then statted out a couple sample monsters for. So you never know what you're going to get, or sometimes I'm just like, here's some plot ideas or plot hooks you can steal to use for your game if you want to use this thing.
Yeah, and random roll charts, magic items, subclasses. I mean, just about everything that could possibly be done with our newsletter, or with with the concepts of D&D, we've done it. We've talked about it, and there's going to be more.
So with that, thanks for hanging out with us, everyone. But we'll be back tomorrow night for Zoo Mafia for session 5, maybe?
I think it's 5.
I think it is 5. And then we will be back here with our live chat to talk to K-Wood Publishing on noon on Friday afternoon, 12 p.m. Eastern time. So you can come and hang out with us. And until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.